Hello and welcome everyone to another fantastic Tuesday here on the Exploding Dice channel. My name is Askren and I am your host. And we have an excellent show for you today. I'm really excited. I have brought with me the incomparable McLoken, and I can hear myself turning that off. I always forget to turn that off. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm tired, but I am definitely ready to hang out and have some fun, talk Dungeon Master stuff and D&D stuff, and just, I don't know, maybe have a drink later. You are beating me to that, but I will join you very soon. So, before we dive into it, I don't know if it's just me. I'm very confused. My dashboard says people are here, but Ankbot doesn't show anyone. I don't
know if Ankbot's not connected then. I'm gonna see.
No, it is. It looks like it is. I don't know. It definitely is, because Dice Lulu is announcing things, so maybe Twitch is having an issue. I have no idea. Anyway, what is going on, guys? If you're in chat, say hello. Tell me how the audio levels are, because I tend to screw around with them, so I don't necessarily know how they're looking. And also, I wanted to mention, thank you to, we have a ton of new followers from the giveaway thing that we just started. Specifically, thank you to The Gamer Domain and McLoken for following just before the show. Welcome to the madness, everyone. Thank you, guys. You are awesome. Hello, I'm here. Well, thank you, Sheepdog. I'm glad you're here.
Sheepdog, the show's for you. This is... Hello.
So before we dive into things, I just have a couple of quick announcements. If this is your first time on the channel, I hope you enjoy your stay. We do a few things here. We like to make Exploding Dice your one-stop shop for all things role-playing and D&D, which is why we have our live Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition campaign called Jade Regent that happens every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Exploding Dice. You can definitely check those out. It is a great campaign with a great cast. As also, we have a campaign we just started, and actually someone was asking me to discuss a little bit about this, so we're going to go into this later. We just started a campaign this Saturday. It is called The Writhing Moon, and it is our open legend horror campaign. It is a fantastic cast, and I'm excited to talk about specifics about that. But if you haven't already, go check the VODs, because we had episode 1 and it was amazing. And last but not least, we just started our February monthly giveaway. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of giveaways on the channel and on the Twitter. So go check that out. It's the pinned tweet on the Twitter. Name is right down here, where you can win a brand new player's handbook. I actually have them right on the table over there, and a set of awesome dice. So it's everything you need to get started playing D&D 5th edition. We're also going to be doing some other giveaways, including books like Curse of Strahd and Volo's Guide, so definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. And I think those are all of the announcements that I wanted to go through. How's it going, Firebringer? How you doing, my friend? Yes, ED Love. So let's dive into it. Enough about all of the stuff that goes on here. I want to know about you, McLoken. I want to know about you.
What do you want to know?
Well, why don't we start at the beginning and work our way to now?
I was born in May. It was a lovely year. It was raining that day.
I thought you were gonna say it was raining that year.
the full of rain. The world flooded, and Kevin Costner was my father. Hi. I'm McLoken, full-time variety caster on Twitch. I play in a lovely campaign called Fractured Worlds Guardians on Thursdays on John Sandman's channel with Brad Bodo as our DM. I was asked to be on that show as the experienced player because I've been playing D&D for 25 years. Which was amazing. Then I saw who I was playing with, and I was like, well, fuck, I gotta turn up my A game, because, like, Elspeth's a voice actor, John's a character, and Tiger's just super full of energy, so I was like, well, fuck, okay. I gotta set the game for this one.
That is,
Here I am.
I haven't managed to catch the whole backlog, but I caught the finale of that, and that was some intense ass shit.
So fucking intense. Oh my god. Elspeth and John cried, and Tiger.
I know.
They all cried.
I was there. It was intense, and it definitely it made me want to go back and check out all that stuff because I mean I think you guys kind of knocked that out of the park.
It's the best D&D campaign I've ever played in. For the simple fact that like everyone is very involved in the show, and invested a lot into their characters. Chaplin died. Okay, so let me tell you this story. So we were fighting a dragon. Chaplin's never seen a dragon before. I know a dragon, but I can't be like, well, dragons have breath weapons. I better get out of the way. Chaplin doesn't know that. Chaplin, like, yeah, whatever, like stood in front of it, held a shield out, failed his dex save, like in the first round, and died. His true Brad is a fantastic DM. So he was and I'm terrible at saving throws, so I failed 3 of my saving throws, and the cat like Elspeth and John and Tiger's characters came out to me too late, and I died. And what happened was is that like they had an emotional scene because like the dragon died, they're all celebrating and they're like yay yay, and like someone recorded it. You could just see Dad, we're over here like this, just like quiet, like, because we know it's not over.
Yeah.
And so, and like I had one at that point, I had one death saving throw left, and they're all celebrating, and they celebrated too long. Brad was like my death saving throw, and I was like, but, and I failed it, and I was like, well, fuck, that's me, guys. And luckily, we were by a town, and we were able to revive Chaplin, but it was. Fantastic! I loved it. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment, and like there was a lot of crying. There's been a lot of crying in that campaign, and it's because like the people got so invested into something, and they're like, I feel so emotional. Like the last episode, I got a little bit emotional. I got teary eyed. I didn't full out cry, but like I felt the emotion. They seeped through my black heart, and that's what happened.
It's I mean it's I do like I don't get a chance to play as much these days, but as a DM, man, it is such like it's such an interesting I guess fulfilling like experience when your players really kind of get into into what they're doing. We just started our Writhing Moon campaign, and that is a whole new venture for me because I'm used to doing like really like people tell me I go way too hardcore with my descriptions of like when things get wounded or when there's like gore from a fight or something like I tend to get a little bit too into that, and that's because I'm an illustrator by trade, so I draw these pictures in my head and I just describe them to excruciating detail, but this was my first real attempt at doing a like all horror game, like just that's the tone, and we really worked. I worked a lot with my players. The cast that I picked is great. These guys are amazing, and we spent a lot of time behind the scenes, sort of talking about the nature of the game and the what this world is and sort of the atmosphere. But when we got into it, they were just there. They were just in every moment, and it was so cool. Especially like right when the I love doing cliffhangers, endings, because I love that moment when you're like, and that's where we're gonna end it for tonight, and everyone's like, ah!
You and fucking Brad, Jesus Christ!
It's the only way to go, man. Every session.
I mean, like, so this is a show on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
So like that's I think how D&D on Twitch needs to be.
Yeah.
For the simple fact that like when you do that, it makes people like literally when Brad does it to us, like I'm one of the few people in our show that is just like all week I'm like, what the fuck?
That's
and
it.
Like, and Elspeth and John, they come back and they're like, oh, what happened last week? And I was like, and then like, I'm in this perpetual nightmare of like, okay, this is what I have to do if they do this. Like, I'm playing chess in my head. Like, okay, what if we did this, or how we do this, how we do that? And it never ends up going that way because it's D&D. But yeah, I mean, like leaving on a cliffhanger and having those people being and getting people committed to come back and being like, they're like, I need to see what happens. I need
Yeah.
to see this, and it is great. And that's a I mean, you can't play D&D the same way you do on tabletop. Like you can leave it as a cliffhanger, but it's like you and your friends, you know. But when you do it on Twitch, you have to appeal to a mass of
Hmm.
people, not just 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
When you're doing a personal DM, so you're actually like doing a show, and you want people to come back. So that's what I kind of that's why I like about like Factual Worlds and even Potatoes table stories
Hmm.
have been fantastic. Here's the thing: a lot of people watch Critical Role, never seen an episode of it.
That's not surprising. That's actually a thing I've heard a lot of. A lot of people. A lot of people I know just don't really have that much interest in it. In fact, I didn't even see an episode of it for almost half the series. I think
Yeah.
it's just
Uh,
it's just you know what I think it depends on like if you're sort of immersed in these sort of really cool people doing really good games like you don't necessarily find yourself kind of like seeking out more like where can I find I don't know I wish I had more time to watch more shows like that's just me I
mhm.
don't have nearly enough time to hang out with all my friends who play D&D because I know they all do amazing stuff. By the way, thank you so much Time Wizard and Underdog Junior for the follow. Welcome to the madness, my friends. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's we I've talked about this a lot, and actually, this was something my friend talked with Matt Mercer about just the other night. They doing shows on for podcast and for Twitch is like it's a whole different skill set I think that you sort of have to learn and exercise in the process because when I started on Twitch, my kind of motto or my guiding idea was like if I can just kind of entertain this, I want to entertain my players and then hopefully entertain maybe a few other people at the same
Mhm.
time. But it's sort of I like the more time and energy you kind of put into it, I found that it's a little bit more complicated than that. There's nuance to it. There's a whole different set of management skills and things you need to think about. Um, you know, it's I don't know. There's a lot of things I've learned in the last year of doing this basically
Mhm.
that have just changed the way I DM hugely. I think.
Mhm. I mean, when Fracture World started, that's Fracture Worlds is John and Brad's baby.
Yeah.
And John approached me like 2 months before it started, and he was like, "I want to do a D&D show." And Brad had already had 2 campaigns fell through due to people not showing up,
Hmm.
or whatever the case. And so John was like, "I really love D&D. I want to play D&D." Yeah, and me and John are in the same team. We're on the party. So he asked like the group. He was like, "Who's interested in playing D&D?" And they're like, he's like, "I'm kind of looking for an experienced player." And I was like, and yeah, I think me and Bobby are the most experienced, but like comparatively to most people, I was like, "Yeah, I've been playing for like 25 years." And a lot of people are like, "Holy fuck, when did you start?" I started playing in front of a Catholic church during recess in first grade, and they were like, "You're the devil," and like they literally they called me to the office, and they called my parents to the office because I was playing D&D in front of a church. And my older brother played D&D and went to the same school, and they're like, because he's like 20 years older than me, and they're like, "Oh, do you remember our son Paul?" And they're like, "Oh yeah," and they're like, "Well, he played D&D, and he's a science teacher now, so and he doesn't worship the devil." And then that shut them the fuck up and left me alone about it. And I was like, "Okay, there we go. Cheers." Um, Thanks, mom and dad, for supporting me being a nerd. But so basically, so John wanted me to be on the show, and he was like, I want you to be on it, like you're a character, and I think this is what you need." And like, and me and Brad had a discussion before the show started, and he was like, "Elspeth has never played, Tiger have never played, and John had played maybe a little bit." So he's like, "You kind of have to guide them." So I was like, "All right, I'm gonna be a lawful good cleric." and keep everyone in the fucking line, which I think I've been doing good so far. But like even like it's hard to play a lawful good character because I think Captain almost fell out of alignment a couple times.
Yeah.
Because it's always hard to have that mindset of like what to play. But yeah, but basically yeah, that's how like Fractured Worlds got started and all that, and it was that concept of having it be a show instead of like an actual game, which
Yeah.
it's still the game, but we have four people that are committed to putting on a good show.
That's actually
And
something that's I wanted to touch on a little bit, mostly because like when I started when I originally started streaming, I tell people kind of it was sort of on a dare. I had just sort of started a group on Roll20, and one of the people was like, hey, one of our players has this Twitch channel and he does video games, and do would you be interested in putting the D&D game on the channel? And I was like, to me it had always been something I was sort of like recording sessions or something like that had always been something I'd been interested in for like probably 5 or 6 years, ever since like D&D podcasts kind of became a thing. But I always sort of hated my own voice, and I didn't think it would be worth it, so I never did it. But we just gave it a shot, and it just kind of spiraled from there. But so the people that I started playing with were very much not entertainers. They were just normal gamers, right? And when I started Writhing Moon, which the new show is, again, this is a show that I started after being on Twitch for almost a year, and just interacting with the breadth of people that I've hung out with, is like, no, if I'm gonna do this, like, I want it to be the best thing I can put together, which means that I have to make sure that I'm working with like actors and streamers and people who are committed to the craft of entertaining, not just people who want to be there to play a game, because I think the results are just far, like, they're just so much more interesting, and they tend to be so much better when everyone is there sort of to create this really entertaining experience.
yeah, and that's what I hear about the people on Critical Role. Like I hear Matt Mercer's an amazing DM. He's very descriptive, and he's very good with his voices. Um, and he has five voices, and he's super awesome at those five voices. That's what someone told me. I don't know if it's what the case is, and I was like, okay, so to be a good voice actor, nail those five voices, like nail like five voices that you do very well and make them the best, and then go from there. But yeah, no, like that's I mean, even Jay's channel, like I helped Rotato, which right now Ascension's going on. I believe it is. Let
Yeah.
me double check real quick.
Yeah, they just started a little while
Um,
ago.
yeah, they did. So wow, holy crap, they got like over 1,000 people in there, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
amazing.
fucking Jay.
Um, yeah. Well, no, it's like that, like 1,600 people. Like it's usually around 3 to 500. It's about the same as Fractured Worlds. And so Jay and I had a couple drinking sessions where we talked about D&D, and he was having problems with Ascension, and like he's like, how do I get my characters absorbed into it? And we drank into it, and so what you're seeing is that he took some of my and put his own spin on it, and that's what you're seeing in Ascension right now. Marcus and storyline that he's following currently with everything, which and I'm good friends with Elspeth, and I was like, how are you liking the campaign? She's like, I'm really loving it now. I'm really just like getting into it, and I was just like, and because like playing like I've DM'd a couple campaigns, but like and a lot of people want me to DM a campaign, which I'm working on, but I haven't really solidified anything.
I getcha.
Yeah, like it's gonna take a little bit because I gotta write, because I like doing homebrew campaigns if I'm gonna do one. And so what and I like helping people, like if they have a question. Like I can never help Brad. I can never help Brad with Fractured Worlds because I'm a player in it. Like if I ever talk to anyone about a D&D campaign, they're never gonna be in that campaign because they would know what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
And and so I know like DMs like meet each other, like
I
me,
don't.
Jay, and you don't meet other DMs.
I very, like, people ask me this all the time. I don't really know. I mean, I know other DMs, but I don't really commiserate with other DMs about ideas. Like, things just tend to stew about in my head until they
Mhm.
reach like game time, and then I just sort of do them and hope they work.
Like it like when you can talk to someone and like brainstorm with someone else who's not a part of the campaign,
Yeah,
and being like, oh, like it helps get those like creative juices going because they throw a perspective at you.
yeah,
Like, okay, I didn't look at it that way, and like, oh, all right, yeah, no, that fucking totally works, and
yeah.
so I like talking D&D with people, and that's my magic.
Yeah, no, I like, and it's certainly not to knock it. I have in the past, like, I used to be part of this Slack channel that was all D&D, and I used to kind of share ideas there. But these days, the
Hmm.
people that I know that are dungeon masters are way too busy to actually sit down and listen to me yammer on about my campaigns. So I just tend to not bother
Yeah.
anyone, and I just tend to keep it to myself.
It's hard because like you got like hand off the wheel a little bit and do all that kind of stuff. Like because you could go on a campaign for days,
Yeah,
Oh, there's so much to it, and like everyone's campaign has so much to it. Hopefully, if you're doing it right, you have a
yeah.
lot going on. But yeah, that's kind of how that goes. But
You were actually you were talking a little bit about you were kind of in the process of homebrewing a campaign. I'm assuming you're sort of in that sort of formative writing, writing state.
in my head, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very good storyteller. I can make up a story really quick in my head.
Hmm.
So it's like whenever I make a background character or anything like that, and I have a couple stories in my head that I want to get down on paper and start writing out as a campaign. And the thing is that like what I don't really have going on is when I write down a campaign, it's kind of chaotic because I'm like maps. Duh, what's going on here? It's all over the place because like if you look at the normal like pregame modules that they hand out,
Yeah.
they it's pretty much like they're like, well, here are the options that could happen, and in my head that's already there, and I don't need to
Yeah.
write it down. So like I'd be terrible at making like it like a pre-gen, like play McLogan's D&D campaign because if you would got it, you'd be like, this is a chaotic mess of like
Yeah.
napkins and notebook papers that just have random like what is going on? Like,
Ironically, that's exactly the same way I am when I try and draw stuff. Because even though
mhm.
I'm an illustrator by trade, when I draw, I sort of get in the sketching process, and then so I put in stuff like really roughly, but in my head, all the details already there. So it's like, oh, but I don't need to put it down on paper because I already know. And then
Yeah.
it just never but that's actually because I just did Writhing Moon was actually my first real attempt at sitting down and homebrewing like for serious in a long, long time.
Hmm.
I've been doing a lot of I didn't do I did a lot of published adventures, but I did mostly edited versions of those. Like I would cut them up and fix them and edit them, after the fact.
Hmm.
But this was my first real kind of homebrew attempt in a long, long time, and one of the things that I am a stickler for, and one of the things that is still kind of grinding on me, is internal consistency.
Yeah.
In my head, like I need to put down on a flow chart, like everything that connects to everything and has to lead to everything has to be mapped out before we even start. Because if it's not, I'm just like I'm gonna say something dumb at the beginning and I'm gonna forget about it in the middle, and then the player's gonna be like, "But wait a second." I'm like, "I don't know."
Hmm. I mean, that was Brad's huge worry. Um, he was very nervous when Fractured World started, and he told me after the first session happened, he was like, "I was really nervous about this." I was like, "No, you did fine, man." And he was like, "No, I was nervous because you're in the campaign and you've been playing for 25 years, and I thought you were just gonna call me on a bunch of bullshit." And I was like, "I've never played 5e before, and you've been playing 5e for a year." So it's kind of you kind of have that leveling field,
Hmm.
but like that, and I was talking before the show, like me and Brad get in rule arguments all the time,
Yeah.
and I'm always wrong because I'm going off like 3.5 or Pathfinder, and he's 5e, and that's the campaign we're playing in. And they changed it. They changed it just a little bit, like where it's like that one wording makes me wrong, and I'm like, damn it! Every time we do this, like I had to look it up, and I'm like, oh, that's stupid. I get mad. I get mad because I'm like, I like my old rule. I like my old rules, and they're beautiful. And Brad's like, these are my rules, and like he's like, I never want to learn a different edition. And I was like, well, if you play long enough, guess what's gonna happen? Yeah.
So right now, I'm in 1, 2, 3. I'm in between 3 and 4 5e games a week. And then on Friday is my home game, and that's a Pathfinder game. So what happens is I go my whole week, I play, with these people, and then I go back to my Pathfinder game, and I'm constantly asking them for, like, 5th edition stuff, or like, I'm asking them to make, like, strength checks, or, like, charisma, and they're like, what? Why? And then...
And Pathfinder? You could do those in Pathfinder.
I know, but they're so used to, like, it. Basically, what happened was I used to DM Pathfinder, and then when I started doing 5e, like, I go back to it and I forget a lot of the stuff because it's like in 5e you don't have the skill. Like, you have no idea how many times in 5th edition I asked for a bluff check, and people are like, what? What is that? I don't know what that is.
Deception.
Yeah.
If they were good players, you're like, oh, I can give you a deception. You go, no, they have terrible players. That's all I have to say. I'm kidding, but
they every time I'm like, yes, can you roll me a diplomacy check? They're like, you mean persuasion? And I'm like, oh, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah. I think my biggest mess up I do with 5e is I always roll. They're like, give me a perception check, and I'm like, good, I'll do that. Luckily, my skills are both the same for chaplain, but they're both like +7. But it's basically, I always roll. He's like, give me a persuasion check. I always roll perception because I see P, and I'm like, there we go. And then he's like, well, you perceive the situation, and like, and I'm like, god damn it, I have to re-roll this, but. Yeah, that's I like because like comparatively to we chatted about this before, is that like the skills that you had in 3.5 or Pathfinder can really define, like you can really make your own like kind of unique character. Feats, I didn't mention feats before.
Oh yeah,
each was Chaplain. No, dude, no, he's got like a +7 in perception. It's just the rolls have not been the greatest sometimes. He's noticed things other than the other characters haven't. But with feats, basically, I remember like if you played a fighter, if you played a fighter to level 3 and then leveled up a paladin the rest of the way, like it was a ridiculous character class that you could do in Pathfinder because you get all those bonus feats right off the bat, and then he becomes a paladin. And then you kind of like you have more feats than a normal paladin would, and then you get like all the bonuses. And
fighter dip for the first for 2 levels was a pretty common thing in Pathfinder because you get you get some real, like you get, I think it's like 3 free feats, 2 regular ones and 1 combat feat, I think offhand. It's I don't know, but that's the thing is, like, I kind of man, I had to build. The thing about it is I used to be able to, but these days I can't build a Pathfinder NPC on the fly anymore. Like I used to be able to, but I'm so used to just kind of just bullshitting it in 5th edition, like grab a stat block from something else and just switch some things around. But it's like I had to build a brawler for an NPC, and I'm just like, what should I take? Critical focus? Should I take dirty trick? Should I take what? How do I make? And it's like, it's tough.
If it's generally on the fly, I wouldn't add any crazy things like any feats or anything. Like, there's so many feats that in Pathfinder. I mean, there's a lot of feats in. I don't even know how to take feats in fucking 5th edition.
I believe you can forego your you know how when you level up you can get a bonus to your ability scores.
Yeah,
I believe you can
forego that. Okay, that's
for
what
a feat.
It was.
Yeah,
all right. Both points, or just like you could do 1 for 1, or
it's when you level up, you should only get +1, and I believe that's what you trade in for feat. I don't know. I've never taken a feat in 5th edition. I've never done it.
I'll have to look at that or talk to Brad and be like, what can I do for this? Because sometimes like my favorite feat to take was quick draw. Quick draw is like
Yeah.
my most favorite feat because you're like, oh, enemy, and like all of a sudden your weapon's out and you're like, I'm ready, like because usually it took a round to get your weapon, right? You're like, I'm drawing my weapon this round. You're
It's
right.
a
And the
yeah,
guy
it's
runs
a,
up
it's a
to you.
move action, but if you have +1 BAB, you can draw it as part of a move action.
Yeah, like okay, that's one thing about Pathfinder I never really got down. And I DM'd a campaign and then that campaign fell through. And wait, hold on, Tank 4962 did put a good point. My religion, yeah, my every time we need to make a religious check in Fractured Worlds, and I'm like, let Chaplain do it, and he always rolls really low, and he has an all right score, and I think it's like +4 or 5 in the skill, and I think it's even I don't know if it's actually he has proficiency in it. But the thing is that every time he rolls it, it's always really low,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you know nothing about the gods. And I was like, I'll count that to he wasn't really religious before everything. That's I don't know. Like it's fantastically bad how he's the worst priest in all of these campaigns. And he's probably
Oh God.
the highest level priest too.
You have noted where I was telling you a little bit about the fact that we have a I have an 8th level Pathfinder campaign, my home game,
Yeah.
and we have one of my players. The group is a fighter, is a dwarven armor master fighter, so just a dwarf and a shitload of metal, nothing special about him. There's a barbarian whose only thing is that he has damage resistance, so he is fucking just wades through enemies. There's a swashbuckler who crits ridiculously. So you've got basically three fighters, and the only
Yeah.
magic in the group is the cleric, and he is a cleric of Gozra, who is a neutral good god of the sea. And he basically that means like this cleric doesn't give a shit about anything.
Gozer?
Gozra.
Oh, Gozra. I don't like Gozer.
Yes,
Gozra. I was like,
Gozra.
wow.
That was a
What-
splat book. Yeah, that was a recent splat book for Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Um,
Have you ever? We were talking about the cross classing earlier. Have you ever
Yeah.
read like the epic level epic level characters guide?
for which edition?
Well, there was third edition. I believe Pathfinder might have had one, but third did have one where they showed like Elemenster, and they
Yeah.
showed like his skills all and like Drist and all them. And like if you look at like all that, like Elemenster is like a level 20 wizard or like
Yeah.
level 22 wizard, and he's got like 1 level in rogue and like 1 level in fighter and like 1 level in like sorcery or 3 levels in sorcery or something like that. Which I find interesting with that is because they take it and get like the bonuses for that class,
Yeah.
right? And so and like I'm wondering like are people still playing these characters? Like the people who made these characters, were they ever playable characters at one point? Like did someone play Elements and they're like,
I
"Oh,
don't
where'd the
I don't know
book
about
this?"
Elminster. I believe Elminster and Drist were specifically just characters written by R.A. Salvatore. I think it was R.A. Salvatore, right? I think so.
Yeah.
And they were probably they were added to the world later, but the like for example the original cast like Mordenkainen, Bigby, and a few of the other ones were all like that have shit named after them in D&D were all original characters played in like Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson's games way back
Yeah.
when. Greenwood wrote Elminster. Yeah. My D&D fiction, I was never really a big reader of the D&D novels. I know a lot of people grew up with them. I just kind of never did. So my knowledge of like the Forgotten Realms and stuff is minimal. People actually one time I've told this before, but I had a friend. We were ending one camp or we were putting one campaign on hiatus, and we were about to start another one. And one of my players was like, "Hey man, you should run a campaign in Forgotten Realms because I know everything about Forgotten Realms. I've read all the books." And I'm like, "That's cool. I know fucking nothing about Forgotten Realms because I haven't read any of the books." And
I know Forgotten Around some of Dragonlance. Legend of Huma's the first D&D novel I read. That was a really good book. I love that book.
yeah, I again my when I was a kid, I wasn't really I don't know I was never really reading those things, so just because I was into role playing games, but I wasn't into D&D at the time, so I just never got my hands on those books. So that's why like my real introduction to Forgotten Realms was with the new 5th edition, like Storm King's Thunder and Rise of Tiamat and all that shit. You know, that was when I started actually getting into Forgotten Realms stuff. And by the way, I wanted to thank you to the Cowboy Centaur and Claylex for joining us. Welcome to the madness, my friends. And also thank you for the hosts. I forgot who it was. Merlin252 and Grand Outlaw. Thank you guys. And thank you for joining us. Yeah, so I guess we were talking a little bit about that, but I'm interested. What kind of got you into role playing? Where do you think, like, where do you kind of consider yourself as a role player? Like, what are the kind of things that you sort of camps that you fall into?
Like what, like my style, or
I mean, yeah, like do you like are you one of those people? Are you particularly into like the mechanics side of things, or are you like forego those in place of role play? Like where do you find your passion lies?
I use both in both. I'm very good at taking myself out of my character, because I know so much about the fucking like as a kid I used to read the monsters manuals all the time. I used to go through the monsters manuals and read them, so I would know a lot about the monsters that we're fighting, and so like I'd be the guy like in a campaign where like, oh, and they would give the description and I'm like, oh fuck, like shit.
Yes.
I know. Okay, I know what to do, but my character doesn't. As I said with like Chaplin before, he'd never seen a dragon. I know what dragons done. I fought a lot of dragons, but like he's like, okay, I'm gonna take the brunt force of this, and then he died, you know. And that's not the strategy you should take with a dragon. Don't stand in front of a dragon because he's gonna breathe fire or electricity or acid on you because he hates you. I like the mechanics. I like, because I played a lot of Final Fantasy, so I like having a character who is good at what he does. Like when I do campaigns, like when I've done campaigns, like I make them the champions, right? They're the champions that are going to save the world, whether they realize it or not, or they're going to be the villains, depending on how they want to play it, right? But they're better than majority of the population of the planet on what they do, right? And I think there's a podcast that does it well. They play 4th edition, but I really liked how they played their campaign, and it's
was it God's
Major
Fault?
Spoilers. No, it's the Major Spoilers crew. They do one Critical Hit. I think it's called Critical Hit. Let me look it up to make sure. But let me spell right. Podcast. Let me see. Did they go to 5e? I think they.
I have no idea.
5e.
I don't know. I'm not. That is one podcast that I have not actually listened to.
They're far into it. And I want to go back and listen to it. It looks like a lot's happened since I've listened to it. But one thing is that how they did it is that like the campaign always scaled with them. Like whatever they were doing, this was the earth altering situation that was going on, right? And which most campaigns, if you want your characters to feel like they're doing something for the world,
yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, because if you're like, you have to go save a puppy for the mayor because he lost his puppy and it's gonna get eaten up by an alligator, and that's the one shot. I don't like one shots too much. I like an epic campaign.
Yeah.
So I like making a character that is a champion for whatever reason. Usually when I do a campaign, I give every character an 18 automatically. They have an 18 they can put wherever, and then they have to roll the rest of their skills.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Because I want them to be like, they're really good at something, you know, because like 10 is average. But,
now,
you know,
just a question about that, because I side point. If you give them an 18 so they can be good at something, and then you have them roll the rest of their skills,
yeah.
Is there any difference in your mind for them just sort of doing it via point buy, like building their character however they want?
I hate I don't like point buy.
Okay. No, no,
Like
I'm
I
interested in the in why you think those are different.
why they're different? Because like you get an 18, right? So you're
Hmm.
good at one thing, and it
Yeah.
could be like you're a rogue. I have an 18 dexterity or 18 intelligence, depending on how you're playing that rogue. You know, and then you get the rest of your rolls, and right, they could be terrible. Like you could have an 8 and be like, I put that in Constitution. Like he's a weak. Like like, I think it kind of automatically. You could have really good rolls, but
Hmm.
here's the thing I've learned in 20 years: your stats don't really matter all too
Yeah.
much because the dice kind of guide everything. So it really what it comes down to is that like when you make a character, if you're good at role playing, you can get through most situations, right? If you're bad at role playing and you're like, I just want to hit things, you're probably gonna die more quicker than someone who role plays, right? They'll get in battles,
Hmm.
but they're already thinking about that strategically in the fight, like how that character would act instead of just running in and hitting it with whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so, but yeah, I think like with the point buy, I think it just kind of makes a generalized character, and like you're always going to end up with the same point values, no matter what.
Hmm.
But yeah.
I generally don't like I don't really do rolling that much, only because um I find that if just letting players do their point buy and basically build whatever character they want to tend I mean they'll just create some, like, and obviously I always, as a DM, I always kind of reserve certain veto power if their concept is ridiculous or I just don't think it fits or something like that, but uh usually, more often than not, I find that when someone rolls really shitty on they have an idea in their head and they're rolling their dice and they get a really shitty roll, they tend to lose enthusiasm for that character a little bit,
Hmm.
at least in my experience. And I'd rather, when players come into a campaign, they be excited about their character and they want to start exploring. But again, it's just, I think it's mostly based on your experience with it, because, and that's why I wanted to know, because the idea of giving them that 18 and then having the stats roll after that was interesting to me. It seemed like a very, very weird dichotomy, but
Yeah.
I'm
I also have them reroll ones because I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
like
that's
ones. I like
yeah. Firebringer said, do you do the 4d6 drop one?
yeah. Well, I drop one, and if one of those ones is a one, they get to re-roll that.
Hmm.
So like, so they roll 4d6, and let's say they get a 6, a 5, and 2 ones, right? They can roll both ones.
Okay.
And I'll be like, okay. That's why I like because generally they'll
So
get a little bit higher stats, but
so you favor like hot, like averaging higher power level for the players.
fantasy, yeah, higher fantasy
Yeah.
games, yeah. Um,
That's, I mean, that's, and
mhm.
that's respectable. I think a lot of games are sort of tuned that way anyway. Pathfinder says that it's tuned for 15 point buy, but I find that it's general, like, if you do that at least for the first couple levels, your players will get crushed. Like they will be so underpowered. It's not even funny. I mean
Yeah.
I like that. I don't mind that just fine. Like, high fantasy games are pretty cool. The only thing that I tend to do roll wise in my campaign is health. I always let my players, when they level up, they can either roll their hit dice and take whatever they get, or they can choose to just take half of the hit dice.
Brad does that too,
Yeah.
and he like the first time we leveled up, he's like, "Yo, you guys, this is what you can do," and he never mentioned it. 'Cause none of us were like, "Let it roll." We're all like gambling, like with our health. We're like, "Yeah," because we're trying to get like that 10
Yeah.
to pay out, like which I think we're doing. I think Poo Poo Cakes has the worst health. I think he's worse. He's rolled like 2 levels in a row. He's rolled a 1,
Yeah.
and so he has like maybe a little bit over 20 hit points right now.
Yeah.
We're all like level 7, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the barbarian in my Friday game they just leveled up, and I think he rolled a 9 or a 10 on his
Yeah.
health, and he was like, "Fuck yeah, I'm a beast," and I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, those things I don't mind, because again, it's always an option. If you don't want to get the 1 on the health, you can take the half of your hit dice, but then you're just, it's just the average. You're not
Yeah.
amazing. You're just you're just there. Um, oh
But
man,
I think also with the 4d6 rolling,
yeah.
when you get the final rolls laid out, because you have the 18 and then your 5 other rolls, that's where you actually look at your character and go like, okay, who is my character?
Yeah.
Like where are things like when you do a point buy, I think it kind of takes away from it for me personally.
Hmm.
Because then like you're always going to be rounded out at a certain point. You're always going to have a certain amount of score depending, right? And I think rolling really adds the character build and the investment into with the player and the character.
Okay.
So that's my opinion. So next time you do a campaign, try the rolling and then see if there's any kind of difference in with everything.
I'll consider. There's a lot of weird mechanical things that I like in my head. I've just never really. I don't really pitch to my players because I know they won't really buy into it. The thing about like kind of rolling your stats and then looking at them and saying like, okay, so who is my character? It's a very old school way of doing things. Like that's very much sort of born in the AD&D thing where it's like you roll your stats, you're like, what classes can I apply for? You know?
Yeah. Well, I have a class in mind who I'm doing, and usually like nowadays it's like more of like because everyone's like, like, especially on Twitch, a lot of people are like, I'm just getting into D&D, and I was like, all right, play everything but a magic user, because like that's a whole new level of like and dedication and all that stuff. Like you have to keep track of spells. Like our tiger is probably just getting a handle on these are my spells and like what I can take and all that. And Brad held his hand for quite a while, and luckily John's a ranger where they get like dick all for spells,
Yeah.
like so he doesn't have that much to keep track of. And then but I mainly like nowadays I'm just like sitting back. I'm like, okay, that's why I'm the cleric in the campaign, because no one wants to heal. And I was like, well, and me and Socratic Metapan in chat, we were drinking tonight and we had a discussion. I was like, I'm gonna play in this campaign, so I'm gonna play a cleric. And I was like, should I just be a life cleric? It just seems like they overheal. And he's like, yeah, they're kind of overhealing. He's like, you know what you should do? Fucking be a fucking Tempest cleric and be a sailor. And we've had discussions several times before about like what classes we should play, and that's where the like level 3 fighter paladin came in.
Yeah.
And so like me and him will brainstorm about characters, and like that's one thing good about like because we both DM'd campaigns before, and he's DMing a campaign, and so like but like and he's like have a shield and have like heavy armor and like cleric, yeah. And basically, and like you have an AC of 18, which is like way better than most classes in the beginning of the first level. Even though like I was level 1, I kept getting critted. And I was just like, oh, thanks, Brad. That's the first time Chaplain died. Yeah. What ends up going on is that yeah, and then basically that's how Chaplain was made. A night of drinking and talking, and being like, oh, he's a sailor.
all
And
the
then, like,
all the
writing
best
his
characters
backstory.
all the best characters come
Yeah.
from drinking.
Yes, all of them.
I will never get to play my octopus monk.
There's a middle finger on the screen right now. Like that. This comes into anamorphic characters. That's
You don't like druids?
I mean, druids are fine, but like you say, octopus monk, like that.
No.
That's, like all I can imagine is like it looks like a mind flayer, but it's an octopus.
No,
and he's
no,
just
no.
got tentacles all around him, and he's just like punching in every direction.
No, I have a Pathfinder build that I built a long time ago that is basically a druid monk barbarian, and his shtick is that he has all of his feats give him weapon focus and tentacle attacks, because you can do that with feats, and so he rages as a barbarian, and then he wild shapes into an octopus, and then he just makes 8 monk flurry of blows punching attacks with his tentacles, and it's the greatest thing ever.
That's literally insane.
I know.
When you were wait, Tank was saying when you were in the monk fight in the night in Night Realm, okay, so I played monk my first campaign in 3.5 or 3, it was 3 at the time, was a monk sorcerer. And he was like the sole survivor campaign, kind of. He got a drow right at the end of it. But like monk monks are insane. They're like I swear one of the most overpowered classes. If you know how to play them.
Yeah, I can see it.
Because like they get a high will and they get a high dexterity. They get a high reflex save, which doesn't exist in 5e, but it does because like dex and will are their proficiency class, or their dexterity and wisdom are their proficiency saving throws, right? So basically, what happens is that like if you have a high dexterity and will, you get high AC, high attacks, and you're good on 2 saving throws out of 3, right? If you take a high constitution, you're helping yourself out in the fortitude area, and then you don't have to be charismatic, you don't have to be intelligent. If you're strong, that's great, but you're literally, if no one can hit you, it doesn't matter how strong you are. And you could be like a tank, basically. That's what I did in when Brad shot Fractured Worlds into Night Realm, into the future. And he had me play a monk. He was like, the main boss. I was like, I got this, guys, and I ran up like in her face, like punching her, and she was like trying to hit me, and I was like dodging, and she'd like do a spell at me, and I'm like evasion. I was like, haha, let's do this.
That's actually why in my Friday game we have the swashbuckler is so like. I have a dwarf whose whole shtick is just putting on as much armor as he can. So he has like a 30 AC or something, like a 27 AC.
Jesus.
Not to mention the fact that he can literally just put a tower shield in front of himself and be immune to damage from like one side of him. But we have a
100% cover,
yeah, basically. And so we have a swashbuckler in the group who, I don't know if you know this, dexterity also gives AC, so he doesn't wear armor, but he has such a high dexterity that he's pretty much exactly as hard to hit as the dude who's just loaded up with armor. And because he uses dexterity for his attacks and he has a crit range, he crits the shit out of things.
Yeah. I mean, like, how many, like, there's a lot of feats like improve critical. Like, there is a way to get your critical to 15.
Yeah, you can get it to 15 to 20. In theory, you could get it to 13 to 20 if keen and improved critical stacked, but they don't. But yeah, I think his crit range is 15 to 20.
Tank, I would have to agree with that because basically, if we lost Fractured Worlds, like if we failed Fractured Worlds, what's great about that ending is that we killed her in the end. Either way, we know how she dies. But now we know officially how she dies. She took a hammer to the face from a god. That's a...
I wanted to say thank you to Sergeant Cal for following. Welcome to the madness, my friend. Why don't we, we're kind of coming up on the halfway point. If you guys don't know, this is Fuzzy Dice, the Dungeon Master Show, where we don't just hang around and talk shit about Pathfinder and D&D and all and weird characters, but we also want to, answer some topics and questions from you guys. So let me put !Fuzzy in chat. If you guys have any questions or topics you would like us to discuss, or anything you want to talk about, doesn't matter how weirdly personal you get, we're into it. We'll just drop us those questions in chat. Make sure you tag @Exploding Dice, or you just put like question in big capitals so I don't miss it. And yeah, and we'll take your stuff. And if we don't have a lot, I have a whole bunch of stuff that people have sent me on like Reddit and Twitter and stuff. But someone did send me a question on Twitter, and we were talking about this before, but I feel like I do have to ask, because Grumbling Grandpa wanted to know all about Stampy, and you were telling me that was a very funny story.
Oh, funny and also aggravating. So, me and Grumbling, that's Socratic Mathped in chat. We started playing D&D together. So we've been playing for the same amount of time. We had a friend, I'll call him Dave. Our friend Dave, basically he would smoke pot.
Sorry, holy, thank you for the host, Brad Wodo.
Is that Brad?
That is Brad
Oh,
Wodo
God.
hosting us for 110 people. How is it going, Brad? Thank you for joining us, man. Tell us how your game
And
went. We were watching
yeah,
before.
full boom winter. Hello.
Yeah,
How are you?
Fimbulwinter.
Phil, what?
Is that
Thimble. I'm gonna call it Thimble Winter. Oh,
Thimblewinter?
welcome. It's a Thimble Winter. It's
Ah,
a tiny thimble. That's Charlie. I don't know. I know if you've seen that. Charlie. It's her first campaign she's ever
yeah,
played, and she's doing fantastic.
yeah. She
Or
actually
not played, but ever DM'd.
she
And
plays with she plays with me on Wednesdays on Encounter Roleplay, and I've DM'd for her once or twice. Yeah, I've been watching it. It's been great.
Dave was the world's biggest metagamer and cheater. He was. And all he did was smoke pot and look at the rules and like, wait for loopholes. And like he would always play a goddamn gnome wizard that could turn people into statues. And we're like, no, Dave, you can't. I almost want to say his real name because it's just like what we would say. I'm like, God damn it, fuck, man. So he convinced our DM to let him play an anamorphic fucking elephant man. If you get in back in the day in third edition, you could play anamorphic characters, and one of them was like half elephant, so he was a large character. So he was ridiculous. He had a high strength, and like it was basically like it's one of those situations where the party was unbalanced because whoever he would have like a fucking tree that he would like hit with people and they would like die. So if the DM tried to put anyone in front of him that was comparable to him, we would all get fucked because we couldn't fight what he was fighting because we weren't strong enough yet. Because I was a halfling bard that was trying to make his way in life, and he eventually became a shadow dancer because I was like, you know what, if I'm just gonna have to sneak attack the shit out of people through their shadows, you know. But Stampy eventually got the enlarge spell put on him, so he became huge. He had a 20 in his jump check, where he would jump around like the Hulk and stamp on people. Yeah, he could jump 60 feet easy. Like, easy. And so if he wanted to jump further, he would have to make a skill check. And that skill check was literally like plus 20, because his strength was so high. Like, I swear his strength got to like 30 at one point. But he had a wizard cast enlarge on him in permanent. He was permanently large. And like it was no damn point in playing that campaign anymore. Like I think we all fell out of it because we're like, oh, it's Stampy versus the world because like all of us are like, we might as well just like role play and try to do something. But Stampy, I think he was also a barbarian too. He was a fighter and he was a barbarian, so he would rage and.
And the DM never once tried mind control or wisdom saves. Or will saves.
Anymore.
I'm saying because because as soon as you're like he's a barbarian, I'm like
Stampy got out of it. Somehow Stampy got out of it. I don't know.
No, I have the barbarian player in my game is fucking terrified of having to make will saves against charm and stuff.
Yeah, Stampy was the worst. I know how to like balance a character out, and like that's the thing. Like if he wants to make that kind of character, here's the. Like if he did a will save and he killed the rest of the campaign, like if he killed everyone, he'd be like, oh yeah, he did have some feet. No, he met. That's the thing. Like he had his bases covered. Like he was great at like having his bases covered. Where he's like, oh no, I have iron will or some shit, like or greater iron will. And you're like, oh well, fuck you, asshole. Yeah, he was the worst. And so it was Stampy, fucking Stampy.
Oh yeah, I get
you, every time we're like me and Socratic drinking, we'll sit there and drink, and then like randomly if we're talking about D&D, and then we'll talk about like, balancing, we're like fucking Stampy.
Oh,
we'll just be drinking.
Lord.
Like he only could play in one campaign, and he's like one session, and he's like, yeah, I'm not playing with that character.
Oh
like,
man,
it's really terrible. I just got to make a halfling shadow dancer rogue, and I was happy.
We a long time ago, this was way back in 4th edition. By the way, thank you to Jaybird and Ben Ferraro for following. Welcome to the madness, my friends. There was a long time ago, back in 4th edition, when I was running my first homebrew campaign. I was as a dungeon master. I had a player who he was kind of the same way. He was very min-maxy, like only wanted to fight things, didn't want to do anything else. And I remember I gave him this puzzle because they were in a dungeon, and it was the stupidest, most out of place dungeon I'd ever done, and I don't know why the players bought into it, but they did. And so they at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so they're gonna get a bunch of treasure, but I want to do something interesting. I want to mix it up. So I just decided to put a single stone treasure chest in the center of the room with, when they opened it, just like 5 or 6 gold coins stacked up in a pile, like a perfect stack in the center of the chest. Obviously, fucking trap. Anyone who sees this would know this, right? This guy playing the Bugbear Barbarian, who is essentially the fucking Elephant Man Barbarian, essentially the same thing. He just walks in, he opens the chest, oh, coins, grab them. And so he did, and all the coins were cursed, and they had this curse that made you not want to spend your gold. And that's it. It was just a really simple thing. And so I had him roll a wisdom save or something to not get cursed, and I told him, like, you don't want to spend your gold. That's it. That's the compulsion. And he threw a shit fit about how, like, charm spells are like DMs taking away player agency, and he doesn't want to play this anymore, and this is the worst game ever. And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, and
you know what? Like, honestly, if anyone did that in my a campaign I played, I'd be like, stop being a bitch. I literally the funny, and if they want to go cry about it, be like, all right.
The funniest part about that was the players. He decided that his character was just gonna sit in place and just stare at these coins and not move, because he thought he would hold up the game. And okay, if I can't have my way, no one's going anywhere. And the rest of the party's like, all right, we just leave. Mm-hmm. We just get on the cart and leave. And that was my it ended very shortly after that, but that was my my experience with probably one of the worst players. After that I started screening out my players for personality types pretty heavily.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to do it, especially being on Twitch.
Yeah,
you have to do that because there's a lot of D&D campaigns on Twitch, and unfortunately, they're all gonna make it. That's the statistics of it. Whether they have a good show or not, it's just like the following that they gain, but you're always going to have, someone who's not good at the campaign or good at being entertaining, right? And then when you need entertainment over someone who is more knowledgeable. And you know what I've noticed is that when people are playing in a new campaign, like this is their first time playing, that people really like that. People really like when there's like a new player coming in. Because then they can like come in and the DM will help them, and then they can like get helped out by chat somewhat, and do that. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
but I think it's fantastic.
There's been I've seen surprising success with like beginners play D&D shows, because like as much as you think like everyone who's playing or watching D&D already knows what's up. There are a lot of people who will, they want to watch new people like them play, and they'll be into it. Especially if you kind of structure it in that very kind of simple, like, we're learning as we're going style. Which is interesting. That's sort of what we're doing with Writhing Moon, because it's our first open legend game, and I don't know much of the system. The players sort of just learned it. Like, we had half a one shot together to learn the system, and then we're just kind of going with it. So we're all kind of learning as we go. But luckily, it's a very like, the system encourages storytelling and kind of like failing forward, and it encourages less sort of mechanics heaviness than D&D, so it's been really, really forgiving. I wanted to thank also before Carl256 and Hellbound 235 for following. Welcome to the madness, my friends. We got some questions in the chat. I think Hellbound says, I think you answered this already, but he wants to know what the best campaign you have ever been in, story or gameplay wise, is.
Fractured Worlds, because everyone's really invested into, and dude, Hell Osmodeus, they hear Socratic method, man. Have a good one, dude. Have fun. Have Minnesota. It's definitely Fractured Worlds. I think mostly it's because everyone's an entertainer. Um, the roughest thing we have to go through is John's chat. We don't have any notifications on, so we don't because like during a D&D campaign, a lot of people don't realize that you shouldn't be thinking subs or resubs or anything. Like you can do it in chat,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't be like outward thinking because it kind of breaks the moments. Uh, but the one thing is that uh, uh, that's one thing that we all do. We all talk in chat with people
Yeah.
when it's like not our turn, and like we mute our mics so like we don't have like keyboards going off the whole time.
Hmm.
I think yeah, but the story and gameplay wise, like everyone's invested in the characters, and the story is fantastic. Like I'm always like every week after it's over, I'm like, what the fuck's gonna happen? Like where are we gonna go with this? I don't know. You
Yeah,
know?
man. I like I said, I've caught a few, especially the finale and stuff, and it's like every day I'm like, man, fucking Brad Wodo, these dudes are lucky. When's Brad gonna
Mm-hmm.
DM for me? He told me, he's like, when are you gonna DM for me? And I'm like, fuck it, you DM for me. You're the
That's
one
a
who's doing
that's
it
a,
now.
that's that's a hugest DM problem. That like I think being like DMing a campaign, you also need to be playing in a campaign too, so you have that release of like,
Oh,
I just need to play in a campaign. If I DM too many campaigns, I'm like, I just want to play. I just want to be a
the
character and not have to worry about like all this shit. Like I just wanna play.
the thing is,
You know.
I'm a horrible player. I tend to I lose focus when I'm a player. Like there's because I'm not thinking about 100 things at the same time. So I kind of need that noise, that constant, everything swirling around my head in order to be in there. Like when I'm a player, I just sort of like sit there and just kind of think about what's going on, and I end up getting ahead of the story, and I don't know. I'm just bad.
I mean like I think one thing
Hmm.
the same thing happens to me during Fractured Worlds, where like it's something I'm not invested in as a character. I'll be listening for the story purposes, but I'll be like doing something else, and I won't be actively looking like I'm doing something else because that's one problem on being on Twitch is that like sometimes like you'll see people like on a store like on a and they're just like this.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, is you don't
And
know
like
it.
I've seen that on the bigger channels where
Oh yeah.
people are just like they're playing on
Oh
their
fuck that.
phone and
No.
like yeah, and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like look like you're entertained, And
Yeah.
like I don't know how that works. Uh excuse me. But basically like you like don't look like you're actively doing something else or not invested in it because it's gonna take chat away and be like, well, why is this person
Yeah.
like they're in the campaign? Why are they not invested in it? Why should I?
You guys don't know. I've got like 4 windows of porn open on my other monitor over here. So that's me when I'm on stream. No.
I've been jerking off this whole
You
time.
haven't even, and my hands are on camera. So how does that work?
Hmm.
No, man. Yeah, I definitely like I try and stay as invested as I can. It's just my mind tends to work too fast, and I tend to like I need to I'm bad at sort of slowing down and just being a player. Let's
Hmm.
oh man, these are gonna kill me. So let's go to the dashboard. Um Tank, he says, "What is the best way you feel to get into D&D? I would like to do something on Twitch. However, I'm new both to Twitch and D&D. Do you have any input, or do you want to?
Best way to get in D&D, get into a wow, okay. Get into a group that wants a new where it's new players and you have an experienced DM
Mhm.
who can help guide you along and like help you show the rules. Because once you start getting the ropes, you're like, I got this. This is awesome. Um, but and when you first get into Twitch, find a channel that you like watching.
Yeah,
Find a game. If you want to watch a variety caster, they're going to be more entertaining. If you like esports, there's a shit ton of esports players where you can like focus on them. Or what's the other one? There's another group. Oh, creative is the other group
yeah.
which my girlfriend's doing right now. and I totally forgot about that. So don't anyone tell her that I forgot about creative
The
as a thing.
if you haven't already, if you're not already active on Twitter, I don't use much social media other than Twitter. I don't really use Facebook at all. But there are really great D&D communities on Twitter and stuff, and like they're so helpful and inviting that if you're a new player that's looking for a game to join, I'm sure that they like. And this is outside of just go like my normal advice if you're just looking to get into D&D in general is go to the Roll20 forums, find a game there, play in it, that you like, meet the people playing a game. But if you want to specifically get into streaming, I'd look for people that are also interested in putting together something like that and experiment. I had no experience in Twitch when I got into streaming. I don't want to say that I'm good at it. I just want to it's just one of those things that is very very different experience. So if you but I definitely look for people out there that are interested in the same thing. Find people who are like aspiring entertainers or want to or are already streaming. If you know people who are already streaming, just ask them. Maybe they're looking for a DM or something like that, and you can all learn together. Merlin, no, that I don't know if that's a question. Firebringer says, what is the worst tabletop system you've ever used or the worst experience with a specific system?
That I ever used or experienced. I would say a lot of people love this campaign, and it's great for story and role playing. But Vampire the Masquerade, the imbalances can happen quickly, fairly quickly. Just for the fact it's a D10 system, your character can die insanely fast. If you're fought up against something that can kind of kill you, like if you fight a werewolf and vampire, fairly sure you're gonna die. Yeah, you're gonna get killed. And then the same with werewolves. If someone like shows up with like silver and they start hitting you, you can't absorb that aggravated damage. I'm trying. Brad showed me. He started playing in a Star Wars campaign.
Yeah.
And then he had to show me a comic that explained how the dice work, because I was like, "Is it D20? Is it D10?" And he was like,
"Was that Edge of the Empire?"
Yeah.
It's a D6 system, right?
Yeah, and then like you can upgrade the dice, and then the dice don't make any sense to me because they're a bunch of symbols I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, if you get this, you can do." It's like a game of Yu-Gi-Oh, because like Yu-Gi-Oh makes no fucking sense to me. And so, yeah, that he showed me that comic, and I was like, I don't understand what has happened. What have you showed me? This is confusing to me. I'm gonna go fall asleep forever.
Yeah, probably the worst experience I had with a system. I'm trying to think what it was. I don't know. I haven't had too many horrible experiences with systems. Probably that time I tried to play Shadowrun, and just didn't understand how anything worked.
Shadowrun can be complicated.
Or there was that time that I agreed to play a 12-hour marathon stream of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay without having ever read the rules first, and I was handed like a 300-page rulebook, which I promptly skipped through trying to get the basics, and then I spent the entire 12-hour session failing every single roll.
Yeah, that's rough.
We all failed every single roll, but I failed a lot of rolls, and it was basically 12 hours of me trying to play a game that I did not understand the basic concepts of. And I mean, the people were fun, but the game system I could give or take. I would have preferred something that was a bit more interesting and less ridiculous. Yeah, that's probably, I think that's probably the weirdest system thing I've had. Now I lost all my questions. If you guys have not already, I'm trying to look. Oh yeah, okay. So if you haven't already, we're taking your live questions in chat. Just tag them at Exploding Dice to make sure I see them. We have we'll take any questions or topics you guys want to throw our way. Whether you have something you want us to discuss, or you have a story you'd like to tell and you want opinions on it, or just anything, Anything in general. Ben Ferraro says, do you think that DMs should grant favorable items or treatment to new players? And how much is too much? I'm a new player, and sometimes I feel like the GM is too nice, giving me OP magical items, and does that take away from the experience at all?
Yes. Yes to a lot of that. No to. I don't think you should just give magical items to new players, because then they get that sense of like, oh, I get items this fast, and then when you run into a campaign where like campaign, I haven't really gotten a lot of magical items, which I kind of like, because then I'm like, when I do get a magical item, I fucking cherish that thing. I'm like, precious, yes, look at this, my precious. And I play with it, and I have it, and I'm like, I have a shield that, like, at the beginning of battle gives me a +5 to AC in the first round. So everything, I'm like, I'll stand out in front and be like, I'll take this, guys, and like everyone attacks me, and I'm like, haha, my AC is like fucking 24 right now, so suck it. I like too many magical items in the campaign makes it imbalance really quickly, especially if you don't know what magical items you're giving out. Like you want to start small, and like even like when you're like DMing a campaign, and to make it easier on a character, like if you have like, okay, a paladin for instance, best way to deal with a paladin is oh, the cutie warrior, thank you. The best way to deal with the paladin is when you because they can have a bound weapon, right? It was like either a steed or a weapon in 5e.
I think so. I think.
Yeah. So like if they do the bound weapon path, right? You can like be like a god has bestowed a weapon to them, but it grows with them.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of like being like, oh, you get like a +5 Holy Avenger right off the bat, you get a rusty sword at level 1. Or I think it's level 3 where it comes around. You get like a rusty, crappy sword that you have, and then when you use it to attack people, or like when you level up, it like becomes better. Like it like the rust falls off or whatever, it becomes shiny, or it becomes a better sword as it grows, and eventually maybe become a +5. But with magic items in general, depends on the campaign as well. If it's a high fantasy, you're probably going to get more magical items than most people. I like to say I like to do high fantasy campaigns, but like then again, I'm very stingy with magical items. I don't like people going crazy and being like, look, I got a fucking ring of protection +5, so my AC is really good, and I'm just going to run around and do whatever I want. And I'm just like, okay, that's not... Because I had that learning curve where I was like, when I was, growing as a DM, where I was like, don't give everyone everything they want, That's it's not gonna work.
See, I think I'm very weird in the sense that I tend to be very stingy with magical items for a little while, and then I tend like my DM style in general has always been like I say no for a while until I feel like I'm being a douche, like a bad GM who just says no to everything, and eventually I'll say yes. But the amount of time that takes is usually just enough for the players to kind of feel like they had to strain a little bit. So when I actually say yes, it feels like I'm rewarding them for effort, but really it's just me feeling like I should probably give them something. But especially in 5th edition, I have a 5th edition problem where I run a lot of content out of modules and stripped from modules and stuff, and that tend to always award magical items as like treasures, and that's very much not a 5th edition thing. When I'm pulling things from like Pathfinder modules or something like that, and so like. I tend to give out loot hordes in 5th edition when I shouldn't, and in Pathfinder I tend to not give anything when I probably should. But it's interesting in the sense that like I just gave my my player, again level 8 dwarven player, just met his grandfather. Now he didn't know that this guy was his grandfather. There was no hint or anything. It was just kind of a story thing I dropped in. And his grandfather, I felt like it would be a wasted meeting if he didn't get something cool out of it. So I had his grandfather just hand him an axe, and I'm just quickly like looking through the my hero lab, my list of magical items for like, okay, what can this axe be? It's got to be something interesting. I see dwarven giant slayer axe, and I'm like, fucking that's it, because I remember And so it was like a +2 axe that like has a huge bonus against giants, and they're never gonna fight giants because it's an urban campaign. But he just like one of the players took an adamantine scythe off of a level 7 boss, like completely imbalances things because this thing can cut through anything. But I like when players get those things that they feel like they sometimes shouldn't, and they, you can tell it just kind of helps reinvest them in the game. Like it makes them, it kind of reinvigorates them a little bit.
Yeah, and one thing you could do is, even though it's a magical item, it has a breaking point. So one thing you could do is find that breaking point and break the weapon. So like I think the best example is like you have the sword from Lord of the Rings. I forget what it's called, Aragorn or
Narsil and Anduril, yeah.
Yeah. And that sword was broken, right? But it was still a badass broken sword.
Yeah.
Like it still cut the shit out of everything, So basically, like, you could break that sword, that the adamantium sword, and be like, okay, I'm still gonna use it, because they're gonna be stubborn. They're gonna I don't want to give this up. I'm gonna try to repair it, and later on down the road, be like, I find someone who can fucking like they're an expert fucking celestial smith that is just like, I could repair that easy, and that's a Tuesday for me, and they've worked so hard to get there that they get their sword back, and the balance should be restored by that point when they're reaching a celestial smith, But I think also with like magic items too is that like trying to figure out like one thing I was thinking about is always like giving items that you don't think the characters would like want. See,
that's the thing is I do a lot of is like I tend to give players a lot of loot that they can't, that isn't tailored to their specific character. That's sort of my way of giving them treasure without them sort of getting exponentially more powerful every time they clear a dungeon, basically.
But get creative with that item, and that's what I love. I love when people get creative with that item, and that was fantastic. Like I would never have thought I've used it that way, but you got one on me. Okay. One item that I always give out is like a level 1 bag of holding, because I hate encumberment. I
just never bother with it. Like even before the bag of holding, like I never stress too much about what players are carrying.
Someone who thinks physically, like with, or I mean not physically, but like with like has a very scientific mind. Having a character walking around with like fucking 19 different weapons and like
like that fucking that Wayne Reynolds picture with the 100 swords.
Yeah, and like walk around for normal and like I got more loot and I throw it in there. I like the bag of holding idea, where they have a bag of holding and they're like fucking Link from fucking the old Nintendo Zelda cartoon.
See, the thing is, my players tend to, when they get their bags of holding, because I don't really stress too much about encumbrance and stuff, when they actually get it, they tend to find creative uses for it. Like one player, they fought a giant snake in a labyrinth, so he chopped the shit out of it and took like 200 pounds of its meat in the bag of holding. Like just to bring it back home, and it's like because they weren't really using the bag of holding for anything else.
Wow, but you gotta think that meat rotted in there.
Oh yeah, I mean they obviously most of it went bad, but if it's just the day for the day, it'll be.
I like in 5e where they state that like if you go in a bag of holding, you die.
Oh yeah, because they say there's no air in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's I find that super funny.
That was actually a thing in Critical Role very late in the series. Matt sort of gave them because they met this guild of people that hunts monsters, and they had to take monster parts back to the guild to fulfill their contract, and they were like, well, how do we get them there? And he's like, it's a bag of holding, but it keeps things cold.
Oh, I like that. I was just thinking about that too.
Yeah, he's like, they've
cold refrigeration.
Basically it's magically enchanted to like preserve things that are put in it, and so they call it the bag of colding, and it's they use it a lot. But I thought that was a really interesting solution to that very specific rule problem, because that's something that I feel like as a DM, he and I would probably just bend that rule in general, like that stuff goes bad in the bag of holding. But because people tend to scrutinize the way he does rules and stuff, he sort of had to create a workaround, which I don't know. I think it works in an interesting way.
I mean, like people. That's the one thing. People scrutinize rules. Like one thing is that like there should be like a Twitch norm because the hardcore players who are like that's not the rules. Like, you can't like when you stream a game, you can't really have a rules lawyer because
Yeah,
like, they're like yeah, should work like because yeah, you know. But, like here's the thing. Dungeons and Dragons gives you a rule set to follow, right? But the DM really has the overall ruling over everything, being like, okay, I don't really agree with that rule. I'm gonna change it to be like, hey, this kind of fits my play style and how I see it and how I feel about it. Because not everyone's gonna agree on the rule. Like, some people will be like, I don't think magic missile's accurate or like eerily accurate, which I always think magic missile's eerily accurate. That's like the bread and butter of mages. Like if they didn't have magic missile.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't have any. They wouldn't have any consistent damage output. Like,
yeah,
who gives a shit? It's a 1d
damage that they could always take.
It's a 1d4. Who cares? The Tomb says items kind of should. But bear in mind, back to the original question. Yes, absolutely don't think that a DM should go easy or give a new player extra shit because I don't think the other players in the group would appreciate that really.
No,
Tomb says my DM tends to downscale an encounter to make it easier on a new player. Yeah, I mean, always making it. The thing about it as a DM is you always kind of have to make an encounter feel threatening, but not actually be threatening.
Okay, don't go ahead.
No. That's what I was. That's basically what I was going to say. I was going to say.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like. I think like when a campaign's playing out, I think what Brad did fantastically was before Fractured World started, we did a hour-long session of just playing a campaign, just us offline, so they could get used to it, and I could get used to their play style as well, so I could see what kind of players they were and see what I had to work with. Basically, like they're going through making a bunch of different voices, and I'm for a character. I practiced an Irish accent for 2 months, and I'll talk about it in a second. But so we did a battle, and it didn't matter what happened to these characters. If they died, they died. If they lived, they. But it got them used to the game, and they got a good concept of like, hey, you could die in this game, and it's not like you respawn somewhere. You die. Like your character's done. Like that character's gone forever, and you wrote this whole 3-page backstory on what your character is about. And he just got a cobalt stabbed him in the ass too hard, and now he's pooping never again. And that's the thing. I think that's what Brad did great. We fought a lizard man at the end of that, and and that lizard man hit hard. And like we were all like guards from a town, and we were just fighting this guy, and it was great. It was a great time, like figuring out. And they were like, okay, I need to do this, and I need to do this. And so by the time the campaign started, they kind of knew what to do, and they picked up. Tiger and Elspeth picked up really quick on what to do, So, but I think having like an easier first fight. It goes a little bit better, so you'd be like, here are the mechanics. It's just like a video game. You like when you fight the first boss, kind of be ready to like, okay, I'm figuring it out. Okay, got that. And after that, it's kind of like the training wheels kind of slowly come off.
Yeah.
And then go from there. That's what been kind of Fractured Worlds over time has kind of been doing.
See, the thing is, I tend to, and this is all behind the scenes. I'm not going to tell players I'm doing this, but as a DM, I tend to whiff a little bit on the first, like, levels 1 to 5 are, again, I stick to that. Fights should feel threatening, but very rarely will they ever be that life-threatening, because I don't want a player to lose a character that early in the game, because, again, these are characters that this player, they just made this character. They are invested in it. Like, this is the first character they make will always be the one they are most invested in. If that character dies and they have to make a new one, they're not going to like that one as much as the first one, because if they did, they would have been playing it. So my policy is generally to keep it a little bit a little bit wiffle ball bats for the first couple levels, and then slowly sort of change it into change enemy tactics and make things more lethal and more challenging and stuff. That's again like my home game, like they I told them they got into a fight and they nearly died, and I'm like, yeah, you guys are getting to that point, you're almost halfway to level 20, like things are gonna get like shit's gonna get real, like things are going to try and murder you, and I don't want, and like I can do nothing about it. That's it, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
Yes. Merlin says one of the greatest moments was his DM had a black dragon. And they were supposed to roleplay to get past it. He says the dragon would have led us past its horde. Instead, we killed it and got all the loot. As you do. I mean, you don't hang loot in front of a party and expect them not to take it.
Yeah. I think if someone plays role plays the situation really well, and they come out on top and they're not smart about it, they should get rewarded for it.
Yeah.
I tend to like I used to do campaigns where people role played better, they got more experience, but that causes the imbalance right away. Or it drives other characters to play their characters better. To
try and, get that experience too. I don't see, that's the thing is, to me, first of all, I just don't use experience at all anymore. It's just become a hassle for me, so I don't do it. But I never really felt comfortable giving out experience rewards or things like that for good role playing, because or the same way I never really felt comfortable with like giving advantage for things like that, because I feel like it would become a competition to like get those things rather than, I don't know, it's just always sat weirdly with me. So I tend to find other ways to do it, but I just don't use experience because I don't know, I'm too lazy these days. Hellbound says, what is your opinion on Bone Shard Bomb Clone Alchemist combo? I have no idea. I've never. That sounds like
a Pathfinder.
That sounds like a Pathfinder build, but I'm not familiar with it. My guess is I don't. Yeah, I don't fucking know.
There's got to be a con. There's got to be a drawback to that.
I'd have to see the build, and if I did, I could probably tell you what I thought about it. But I've never seen it before, so who even knows?
Yeah, me too.
Merlin says, my DM was rolling for loot. The group's barbarian was rolled completely random. The giants. Oh, he's talking about no, different thing. Okay. Yeah, he was talking more about the dragon story. Yeah, the Firebringer, actually, this is what I was looking for. He said that his DM or his games sort of have, like, you know how in video games you have like set bonus items, that he's done things like that, and that was a really interesting idea to me, because I've never done that, mostly because it would take a lot of prep time and creativity that I don't think I have. But I think it's certainly an interesting idea. Like, I would, if I could find an interesting way to do that, to put players on the path to those items without it sort of taking over the campaign, I might, I might consider it. That's the thing is, I don't necessarily know if, like, I never really want to sort of make the hunt for specific loot take precedence over like the story that's going on, unless it really ties together.
Yeah, and like it's different with every campaign. Like, you have to find that driving force for the party. Like, what's the party? What's that force that like is binding them all together, and what's driving them forward? Now, it may be loot. It may be like where there's myth that there is a fucking ancient red dragon up there, and he's been collecting loot this whole time, and you guys are all in money situation, whether it's gambling debts or you just want money, or you have a sick family member that you're trying to get so the clerics can heal them, whatever the case may be. I mean, that could be one driving force.
Yeah.
You guys are all after that ancient dragon, and then you get all that loot. What I noticed that when you usually get that much loot, that's pretty much where you run into end game stuff. So they should be higher level when they're doing that.
Yeah.
Because usually a dragon's like horde, especially if they're an ancient dragon, is like a ridiculous amount to have. Like, it literally is. Like,
yeah.
I think it could be like in the millions. So you're running around with millions of gold and all that kind of stuff. So um, that's always one thing to consider when you're doing that.
Yeah, I whenever like I always try and have my games like the party always I think the party always needs a very specific reason for sticking together, and that reason can never be should never be something that they can that they can set out to accomplish in the first session, because inevitably
Hmm.
what's going to happen is like, oh, there's this bad guy, and he you all hate him cuz he ruined all your lives, and they're like, okay, we get together, we go kill him. Now what do we do? Now
Hmm.
we just hang out together and kill stuff even more. Like, so I always try and kind of bind players together with a tie that endures or or continues. And I think I've had players go hunting for loot before, but I tend to keep those as a side activity. Something that they can do sort of in the process of what they're already doing. For example, one of my
Hmm.
players like they were stuck in this in the quarantined in this island within a city, and the whole island's shut down, and it's the shitty part of town, and my player's a barbarian from this shitty part of town, and all he wants to do is open up a fighting ring because he wants to be the most badass dude in the on the island. And
Yeah.
so he bought a place, and he hasn't had a chance to, like, he's looking for an excuse to build it up and create a ring and tell everyone about it, but he can't find one. Like, he's putting a couple minutes here and there into it, and then finally they're like, oh, this we need to find this girl, and she used to be a pit fighter. How do we do it? Fucking fighting
Hmm.
ring. And so they do, and like they start, like, that's a thing that he wanted and he's finally getting, but it
Hmm.
it's only when it makes sense in the story. And I think sometimes as a DM you have to kind of craft those story moments so they let the players do those things that they've always wanted to do, but it doesn't feel like you're just being like, okay, now it's your turn to get that thing that you wanted. Because I think that's my
Hmm.
problem is, as a DM, I've always had a problem with DMs that are like, all right, whose turn is it? It's James's turn to work out his backstory now. We're going to go on a quest, and we're going to do his backstory stuff, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to get back to the
Yeah.
campaign. Like, I never really like that, so it's always like, you have to make it feel like it's natural, like it just so happens. Even though we all know it never just so happens. Thank you, the Cutie Warrior, for following. Welcome to the madness, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Um, Tank says, for both of you, the first time that you DM'd, did you stumble through, or did it go pretty smooth? I don't think it almost never goes pretty smooth when I DM. Uh,
No, and like Brad and I had that discussion, because he's only been DMing for a year. So one thing that we always talked about is having contingencies and having a plan for every which way that anything could
yeah.
happen. Because if you have a plan for a campaign where you're like I need everyone to go left, someone's gonna go right, and
Hmm.
then that person's gonna convince everyone to go right,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, fuck, I didn't, go right. So I need to plan. Then you're on the fly the rest of the time, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and then they miss out everything that you planned for left, and so you have to guide them back to that point.
Yeah.
Now if you make a and how I kind of picture it in my head is that like they have a starting point, and it all spreads out. There's many different paths that they could take. It all comes back to another focal point that they need to come back to. And the other thing is that like it might not just be one focal point that they could go, because it could be several different focal points
Yeah.
of what happened, you know. And that's the way a DM's brain thinks, is that like, okay, what could happen? How many different outcomes could there be? And what can I do to go about that route?
It's an interesting concept. And the first time I DM'd, I remember I didn't know what I was doing, so I just sort of wrote a shitload of prose about the city that the campaign started in, and it was just me for like 5 minutes just reading this fucking page and a half of words that I wrote. That was a complete waste of time. And then I kind of had an idea, I think, about where the players were going to go and what they were supposed to do, but very quickly they started sort of sidetracking that and not making that work particularly well. But obviously, since then, I've learned a lot. Like, one thing that I do is I always make sure that I'm able to sort of pick up and swap locations and sort of vignettes or little scenes that are going to happen. So, for example, if a campaign is starting, right, players start in the tavern, and you need them to find information, I don't know, fucking that the mayor is evil. And you plan to do that by something, hear rumor that something was stolen in town. They find out that it was the Thieves Guild that did it. They find out that once they fight the Thieves Guild, they find the Thieves Guild was working for the mayor. Bing, bang, boom. Simple. But the players might decide to be like, okay, what if we, what if we just go to the mayor and talk to him, Then you have to be like, oh, well, okay, well, if we go here, then maybe he'll drop a clue about this, and then you can kind of swap your locations around, and you can kind of find, maybe, the mayor gives them the clue that the thing went missing and tries to throw him off the track, and then, he tries to lead them to somewhere else. You just have to be ready to kind of play the shell game with your plot points and move things around. In another game recently, the players were leaving town to go on a thing they had just agreed to do. Before they got out of town, they just I mentioned that they saw a poster that the Gladiator games were starting in town. Now all that is because in a few sessions they were gonna have to get involved in the Gladiator games, but as soon as they saw that poster, like, fuck it, fuck going out of town, we want to sign up to be gladiators. And they're like, we're gonna derail this shit, and I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, I expected them to do it. Like, I was hoping they wouldn't, but I expected that they probably would. So the NPCs that they needed were already there and stuff. And that's kind of how you have to be. Is you just the thing as a DM. The thing that you don't expect the players to latch onto is probably the detail. Like, if you just describe a tree in town that they pass by, they'll think that tree is fucking suspicious, and they will go investigate the shit out of that tree. So you just kind of have to be ready to, to swing it.
Brad's run into that because, like, sometimes we get overly paranoid about something because he describes something, and we're like, let me look at that rock. I'm gonna investigate that rock. I'm gonna pee on that rock and see what it does. And like, and then he's just like, it's just a rock. It's just a rock. It's just a rock. It's still just a rock. It's still just a rock. And like, we'll spend like 20 minutes looking at this goddamn rock, and we're like, okay. Like, he's put puzzles against us, and he realized we're all not that smart of players. Like, cause like it'll be like we won't catch the puzzle right away, or something in the fact, and we're all just like sitting there trying to figure out this puzzle. Like, what do we need to do? And like, I'm overcomplicating. I'm thinking way too much into it, and then other people are like, well, maybe it's it. And I'm like, no, that's stupid. No, you get. Oh no, that's stupid. I'm doing it right. Like, that's the thing with like DM players is that like, or DM players, that they're like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I'm playing this game forever, which I'm at fault at. Is that like, I know what I'm doing. I played this game forever, and then you feel stupid when you're like, oh, it's so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't tend to do puzzles that much, puzzles or riddles, because I find that like, here's the thing though, I never do them because I think that they grind a game to a halt and players hate them. But I actually just did a riddle dungeon for my home game. Like, they had to go in and assemble these sort of parts of a big poem scroll that summoned a bunch of fae shit, and they had to put it in the right order so they could sort of answer the poem. And it took like 3 sessions for them to fight everything and to get all the scraps. But when they finally did, and they caught the kitsune that had come out of the scroll, and they solved the riddle, and they got their reward, and all the fae creatures went away, I was like, all right, how did you guys like that? That was kind of an experimental thing for me. And they were like, dude, that was fucking awesome. We love that. And I'm like, really?
I'm like, okay.
I just sort of thought it would be a real tedious thing. And we only did it because it was a story relevant thing. But like, they I don't know. Sometimes they go really well, but a lot of times sort of, when you give players a complex thing, they just don't. They just sort of stop dead. Especially if you, as a DM, think it's really simple, they will just stop. Oh my god, the worst puzzle. I had a bowl of blood. They were in a temple to a blood cult. Bowl of blood, door across the hallway, blood all over the door and all over the handle. I thought it was as simple as could be. You dip your hand in the blood, you go over and you turn the handle. But they dumped the blood out. They fucking tried pouring other stuff in. They were. Oh, it was like an hour of nothing, than trying to get through the thing, and I don't know why I let that happen.
I remember there was a part where they were I think it was Fracture Worlds that this happened in, where they for some odd reason they kept thinking that the answer to whatever was going on was blood.
Yeah.
They kept cutting themselves and wiping blood on everything, and I was like, "What are you guys doing?" Like, no, stop wiping blood on everything. Like, that's not the answer every time. Like, it's not like, oh, this is sealed with blood magic. I don't know where you got that idea from. When I don't know if like something hot came out that in like a game that week where they played it and they're like they all played it and they're like, oh, they opened this door with blood. Maybe Brad did that, and it's like, no, Brad didn't do that. It was literally simple. Oh no, it wasn't Fracture Worlds. It was Table Story, Storm King's Thunder.
Yeah.
And they were all standing at this like altar, and it was literally nothing to do with blood, but they were all cutting themselves and wiping blood all over this thing. And I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, they're like, there's no indication that you need to put blood on this at all, and you guys are just like having a blood orgy. It's great.
Yeah, it's again, for me, like, I did that thing and I thought it was the fucking most obvious thing in the world, but obviously it wasn't, and that kind of cemented my idea that maybe riddles are probably not the best idea.
Depends. Like, you have to gauge your chat's intelligence, right? So, or not your chat, but I mean not your
group, yeah.
So when you figure that out, it's pretty much from that point. You can be like, okay, what's the difficulty? I think Brad put us up against a puzzle that what was it? We had to figure out this chess name, right? And I don't want to talk about it too much. We kind of cheated the system a little bit. Because one thing it's a great spell is Zone of Truth, and there's been
surprisingly underused.
Yeah, no, there's a couple times where Brad's like, if you use Zone of Truth, like right then, like this whole like charade would have been like, it was the drinking at I was about to use Zone of Truth, and then everyone's just like, no, you don't need to Zone of Truth them. You know, it's just a bar. It turned out this bar was a hag den, and we were all in an illusion. And Clutch fucked one of them, and that's where Clutch fucked the hag, and he almost got an STD from it. Or he did get an STD. He almost lost his dick over it.
Oh, nice.
Which was and where Brad was like, you know, magical STDs exist in this realm. So, yeah. And
I haven't done that yet, but I will at some point.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the thing. He's like, if you would have zoned the truth, because I was gonna zone the truth out the door. He would have been. Brad was gonna be like, yeah, that's a fucking hag. Like it's pretty much would be like, what's going on here? Well, this is an illusion. You know, it's like, oh, okay. Yes, Hydra dick. Oh, Hydra dick.
Speaking of magical STDs, one of my players, this is almost a year ago now, one of my players rolled a fortitude save for something, and I believe it was some sort of poison, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was when they were fighting an Otyug in the sewers. I know he rolled a fortitude save, and he failed, and I, as a DM, I was just like, okay, yeah. He knows he rolled shit, but I was just like, yeah, okay. I didn't tell him what it was for. And to this day, my players still say, like, they still think about what the fuck that save was for. And they don't know, and it bothers them. Like, literally, last week we were playing, at the end of the session, my player Gareth was like, dude, man, I keep thinking about it. Like, what was that fucking save for?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know, man. It could be anything.
Yeah.
I love those. I love shit like that. It's my favorite because, like, it's nothing, but I love keeping them in the dark.
Yeah, I like doing that too. Where you're just like, make a save, and you're like, okay, good, and don't say anything, because that's the thing.
Interesting.
Like,
Interesting.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's good to know. And you know, they don't know if they're like, I mean, what was like, oh shit, and you're like, nah, that's cool, dude.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
like,
don't worry
like,
about
okay.
it. What is that? Don't worry about it, man. It's whatever.
You're good.
Oh man. Anyway, I think that is probably all the time for questions we're gonna have. We're coming close to 10 o'clock, and I know we all have things to do and places to go and food to eat, but we're gonna start wrapping things up. So I want to give a huge thanks to all of you in chat who are hanging out with us and asking your questions. Thank you for giving us great topics to talk about, and of course, thank you to McLoken for helping me answer them. We're gonna be bringing things to a close in just a second, but before we do you want to again, a huge thanks. Do you want to like give everyone a quick rundown of who you are, what you get up to, and where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, you guys can find me at twitch.tv/McLoken. I'm usually on from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Central Time, except for Thursdays and Saturdays where I stream in the evening. Mainly because Fractured Worlds on Thursdays and Saturday streams. You guys, I'm gonna be playing. I played a little bit today. And Exiles. All right so far. I'm gonna work out where I'm playing with Iron Chef Bobby Flail in the morning. But you guys, if you guys want to watch Fractured Worlds, that will be on John Sandman's channel at 4 p.m. Central Time, which that is 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if it's overseas, you're gonna have to confirm that in Google because I don't know all those times. Because, thank you so much for hanging out and chatting with us. I enjoyed being on.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being here, man. I know I had a great time. I hope you did, and I hope all of you guys in chat certainly had a good time. Before we get out of here, we're just going to go through a few quick announcements and reminders, as I hope this music starts again. Come on, music. There we go. So, just a few quick announcements. If this is your first time on the channel, as always, remember that this Exploding Dice is your one-stop shop for live Dungeons & Dragons. You can come here every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the Jade Regent campaign, is our ongoing D&D 5th edition campaign. It's a lot of fun, very funny, great cast of people, and it is powered by Sirenscape. They are our proud friends and sponsors for that, so definitely come check it out. It's a great time. We just started, if you like horror and drama and really cool role-playing, we just started Writhing Moon, our open legend horror campaign, here on Saturdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. So definitely come check that out. It's great. The first session is up on VOD. It's broken up a little bit because we had some internet issues, but it is still very, very good. The cast is awesome, and it's a ton of fun. I'm looking forward to more of it. Also, on Wednesday, you can find me at 8 p.m. Eastern. I am doing creative streams as we do a drawing stream. We hang out and we draw monsters from our Writhing Moon world. That is going to be a ton of fun too. And we're adding one new show to the schedule, and that's going to be on Mondays. It is going to be Map Mondays, where we sit down with you guys and we make D&D maps, and you can see how I do it, and I will teach you guys my tricks, and it's just a grand old time. Also, Dice Lulu has been throwing it out. There's a giveaway in chat. It's just !giveaway. Giveaway, where you can win a brand new player's handbook, as well as a set of dice, everything you needed to get started in D&D. So if you don't have one already, go enter that. It's going to be running for the majority of February. That's it. My name is Askren. I've been your host and dungeon master here. You can follow me on Twitter. It's just at Askren. You can check out our YouTube page where every video, including this one, goes up and all the back episodes are, and all the stuff that happens. And if you haven't already, please hit that follow button so you can get alerted whenever we go live and all that good stuff. I have had a ton of fun. I hope you guys had a ton of fun. I know McLoken had a ton of fun. I know he is a ton of fun. We're gonna get out of here and probably host Talks Machina, the Critical Role talk show. But as always, don't let Dice Thulu get his hands on you, or his tentacles on you rather, because he gets very handsy when he does. We'll see you next time, guys. Take care.